On today's program, Dr. John Amaral. John is an amazing soul, but to be sure, he's also an innovator and a true agent of change. John has served as a personal practitioner for many well known leaders, including Anthony Robbins, business guru Jay Abraham, and NLP innovator Robert Biltz. John has also been a guest presenter at Singularity University and provided care for members of the board of directors at the X Prize organization. A few years ago, John founded Body Centered Leadership, which uses cutting edge mind body technologies to help you live an energy rich life. What is that? That, unlike retreats that give you a short break from your real life before sending you back into it all, or coaching or personal development programs that teach you how to think differently, body centered leadership is a bit different. It teaches you how to interact with your body and energy system differently so that you can consistently show up for a clear life, centered and in the zone. John tells us more about that and so many other things. Please welcome to the show, Dr. John Amaral.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to see you again. I love the work that you're doing in the world, and it's great to have you on the program. So welcome.
Thank you.
So body-centered leadership. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? And for those of us that may not know what it is, I'd love for them to learn a little bit more about it and what you do.
Sure. I've found in working with many thousands of people over the past 20 some odd years now, about 23 years, that I've worked with people from 70 something countries at this point, and so I've really had an opportunity to see how the influence of culture and conditioning on people's experience of reality, and how culture and belief systems and rules and how you're supposed to fit, what you're supposed to do, what success is, what being good is, what doing things the right way is, etc. What those beliefs and that conditioning does to people's physiology and their bodies. And so we are shaped by the forces that surround us, and we are influenced by the fields of energy and information that come into our nervous system. And so what I founded Body Centered Leadership around was the concept, the idea that what if we shift our physiology and shift our energy flow and shift our hardware with which we experience the world around us, so that we are free of, or at least free to move about in and transcend the cultural field, and so that an individual can shift their own reality, and that influences the reality around them, which helps in turn shift the culture. So my belief is that my experience is that we're leaders not by just telling other people what to do and leading in the kind of traditional sense, but it's more about showing up with this super energized, aware, connected reality that you have. You show up with energy, you show up with passion, you show up with connection to yourself, and you're so connected to yourself that the things that would normally influence people in maybe negative ways don't have the strong effect on you, because you're so congruent within your own being. And that way of being then influences others around you, which is like a ripple effect, which is, to me, what leadership can be when you're really in this beautiful place with yourself. That's right. What body leadership was really about. And then the tools and the different processes and the teachings around how to do that, how to live that, is what body centered leadership is basically about.
Right. So basically, your vibe matters.
Your vibe matters. We could just simplify it down to that. Your vibe matters. It's a great slogan,
Take it, it's yours.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, everything is based on resonance, and energy. It does. We are in sync or in resonance with certain aspects of reality, or out of sync with them. There can be resonance and there can be dissonance. You can be in harmony with something. You can be in conflict with something, but it starts really within yourself. And that's one of the things that all spiritual teachers talk about. It's one of the things that that science now really backs up, and that is that information is traveling in the system and through the subtle energy body. It's also traveling as waves of energy and vibration through the body tissues. So everything's vibrating and oscillating at these different frequencies. And we're kind of like a tuning fork in a way. We have a certain resonant um, oscillation or vibration in the nervous system and in the body tissues that relates to how we experience reality. And when that changes, it does. We talk about it, and we have cultural terms like someone's in a uptight, high strung, wound up.
Yeah.
We recognize when someone's vibe is in this, intense, kind of irritated and agitated place. Heart Math is an organization that's done a bunch of research on this and looked at people's, heart rate variability when they're in an agitated state versus in a state of peace. And it's a totally different wave pattern. In ease or peace, it's like a wave, like a sine wave that's this rippling, beautiful, kind of harmonious wave. When it's agitation, their vibration is, you can measure this. So yeah, it is vibes. We can simplify it down to that and say, what's your vibe? In some ways we can, and what do you, and then what is that in resonance with, and I think
Ooh, I
my
like that.
experience, my experience with working with so many people is that the energy state that you're in, how much flow you have, how much openness you have, how freely you are expressing and how freely you are processing information, and how aware you are, that really determines the quality of your life in a huge way, and also the quality of your interactions and what comes into your life. These things are very correlated, and when people are in high stress states, they're in a contracted state. Their frequency gets into this agitated place. That's what you experience. You experience this dissonance and this irritation. And it's not that it just exists, because yeah, of course, it's always there. But what is always also there is harmony and peace. So it isn't about the environment outside of you; it's the inner world, and that's the area that I'm looking at. What is going on in your inner state, your inner world, and your physiology and your body that we can shift, that can suddenly make the outer world this beautiful place? And you go, wow, what changed? Oh, I changed.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I've experienced your work, and I would love for you to explain a little bit about spinal entrainment
mm,
or somato-respiratory respiration, which is a lot of what you incorporate in these in body-centered leadership. Is
yeah.
that right?
Yeah, like I studied for over 20 years with a man named Donnie Epstein, who is a
Great guy.
developer of a lot of the systems came out of chiropractic, um, which create a wave of energy that moves through the spine. I mean, it sounds a little bit woo woo, but it's actually it's been researched at USC Department of Engineering, UC Irvine Medical College. I mean, like, major institutions. We've looked at this, and we know we have a predictable response in the body to this particular approach, where the body actually starts self-regulating. It starts dissipating energy. Tension that's bound up releases. The body starts self-correcting itself, and it happens in this wave of energy moving through the body. And when someone starts experiencing a wave of energy in spiritual traditions, they related this to like Kundalini awakening, right? Energy starts moving through the body, it's opening up, and people will have spontaneous movements, and they'll have awakened experiences. We wanted to refine how this wave of energy moves through the body, so that people not only have a more kind of coherent, connected, efficient way of moving energy and dissipating energy, letting things go. I mean, basically letting things go. When you're binding up things because you're holding on, because you're stressed out, you tighten up the body, the spine, the muscles, the central nervous system, everything goes under tension. And through this modality, this approach that evolved out of chiropractic, we can just do gentle touches, little points on the neck, on the tailbone area, working in the field of energy around the body. We can influence how the nervous system is actually holding, and within 5 to 7 minutes, you can go into a state that might take you 20 years of meditation to reach,
Right.
of peace,
Wow.
of ease, of a feeling of harmony, of connection. and a release of tension that is kind of unprecedented. So that modality um, is one of the things that I utilize in my courses and in my programs, because you can't really work through everything cognitively and just with the mind. A lot is somatically, like you said, held. You mentioned somatorespiratory integration. This is another thing that we're teaching, which is how do you interact with your body, your breath, the flow of energy, the movement patterns? How can you influence the way that you move through something by recognizing, hey, my body's holding this somewhere.
Yes, yes.
You know,
Right.
hey, if I touch this part of my body and I breathe in a certain way and I make a sound here, suddenly I connect to what's really going on. My body releases it, and suddenly it's not a thing. It's not even there in my mind, because truthfully, and this harkens to the work of people like Candace Pert, who was a
Love her.
researcher. She was a researcher with the National Institutes of Health. She passed a couple years ago, but she did some amazing research on neuropeptides and the whole fluid emotional system, basically. And she said, hey, your mind is, distributed everywhere in your body. And I'll take it out further to say the mind isn't even real. It's integrated through the whole body, but it is not even in the body, because really the mind, or the consciousness, really is non-local. It's beyond time and space. Like, where is your mind? It's like, Greg, where's your mind? It's like, oh, well, it's, someone might point to their brain, their head here. Go, well, if you slice open somebody's brain, are you going to find the mind? No, the mind is this is consciousness. And so part of what body-centered leadership is about it's more, in a way, we're seeing the body as the vessel, as the in a way resultant of all this stuff that's happening in our consciousness. And the body's replaced every 3 to 5 years at tops. So you got a whole new body every number of years,
Right,
which
right.
something's organizing that, and that's consciousness. Somehow our consciousness organizes how the body's going to recreate. So if we go to the relationship, it's kind of a nexus between the body, the physical, actual structure that's there, which is replaced constantly, the mind or consciousness, and then energy. You have a nexus of those three things: awareness or mind, uh, energy, and in the physical world, physical matter. And that is really a description, in a way, of kind of where reality happens, at this nexus between those three things.
That's so juicy. That's absolutely so juicy. Now, so in a lot of ways, we really are what we think, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we,
Or
we
are,
are we are a resultant of partly what we consciously think, but as we all know at this point, that the subconscious mind, that the part of the mind that's not in conscious awareness, which is most of it, is kind of all the stuff beneath the surface, is going on all the time, and that can be deeply anchored in physical distortions and patterns. So let's say you were in utero. You were
I remember it well.
Yeah,
No, I'm
right. And
kidding.
some people do. Some people very much do with regression hypnosis. There's a woman named Dr. Jenny Wade, PhD, uh, here in the Bay Area. She has a number of books, and one of them is all about taking people back through regression hypnosis, and they relive and re-experience and describe things that were happening during their birth process or in utero that they could not have known any other way. And then they have records to verify that those things actually happen. So some part of our consciousness is there, ever present, even
Yes.
before the part of the brain is developed that supposedly allows us to access that consciousness. It's there, some transcendent aspect of us. So I think that when we start to look at things like, oh, well, when your mother, and you and I have talked about this, Greg, but when your grandmother, before she gave birth to your mother was fully formed, in utero, in your grandmother, and all the eggs that would be with her whole life were already formed before she was born. So the egg that would eventually become you was incubated, in a way, in the energy and the emotion and the conditioning and the hopes and fears and dreams and everything of your grandmother, wherever she was in her life. And part of that was encoded into your DNA through epigenetics, which is the study of how the environment influences or affects our
Yes.
physiology and genetic code. And that was then eventually met the sperm that would from your father that would become it would integrate to become you, but part of you was already exposed and conditioned before you ever even were fertilized. Really, the body is such a critical part of the journey because this is the vessel with which we move about this physical plane. So if you don't include somehow the body and its patterns in your process, you're going to miss a whole uh, rich part of what can create massive transformation. So my
Hmm.
mission and my vision has been to help people and work with people on that level. Like, hey, there's stuff going on subconsciously that's encoded or held in physical tension patterns and energy patterns and distortions that your body makes when you get stressed or have injuries, unintegrated parts of you. And if we can bring that into awareness and integrate that and release the tension and energy that was held, then we open you up to a greater possibility.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so let's say, because I love this whole thing of epigenetics, if we can just stay with that for a moment, but let's say somebody's grandmother was in war-torn Europe um, during the time of conception of their mother. Would their energetic vibe then somehow have a ripple effect into the here and now for that grandchild?
Yeah, it definitely would. And what I found in working with people is that a lot of times the connection to the grandparents is stronger than the parents. It
Yeah.
almost skips a generation. In epigenetics, they talk about it almost in a way skipping a generation. Um, it's interesting to note that there's been research done on mothers who were in war-torn areas or areas in the inner city where there's high violence, versus mothers who were in areas with peace and no high stress from physical danger, and looking at those pregnancies, and studies were done with looking at the development of the infant's brain in one group versus the other. And what they found was really interesting. This is actually out of a book by Joseph Chilton Pierce called The
Mm,
Biology of Transcendence.
yeah.
Amazing author and man who wrote Crack in the Cosmic Egg and a bunch of other books on childhood development. And what they found is that the forebrain area, the higher part of the brain that's associated with higher cognitive ability and reason and affect regulation, basically the ability to stop yourself from reacting because you connect in and say, wait, why am I doing this? That was more highly developed in the children in the peaceful um, uh, in the mothers who were in peaceful environments, whereas the hindbrain and the reptilian brain, the limbic system, and the lower brain centers that are more associated with reaction and typically violence, so reactive, the ability to be on fight or flight and deal with a situation with reaction without having to process and think about it, was much more developed in the children's brains that were born in these high stress areas. So you're really your petri dish in a way that in which you were evolved in is affecting your actual physical brain structure. So we are um, tied to it whether we like it or not. The effect ripples out. Now, does that mean you're screwed? No, not necessarily, because the brain is plastic. So if your mother or grandmother was in this war-torn area, she may have also developed fight or flight and preservation capabilities that allowed her to survive, that some of that was passed on as well, that would give you somehow an advantage. So there's a gift as well as the challenge. And also because your brain is plastic and elastic, if you do the work, if you shift the patterns in your own body and energy system, you can heal and you can change the course of what's going to happen for the next generations. And I feel like that's where we're at. We have the capability here and now to both, and this gets a little bit science fictiony, but really if you look at the physics of it, in when you go into multiple higher dimensions, um, which just a quick rundown of the dimensions. The first dimension is a point, second dimension is a flat surface, third dimension is volume, fourth dimension is time, the ability to move about in time, and the fifth dimension is what's called superposition.
Ooh.
So that superposition is a physics term for a simultaneous coexistence of all possible probabilities and 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 realities in a way that could happen, that you exist in multiple time space possibilities all at once, and they're like probabilities, and there's certain, like, they, in a way, they call it probability clouds, that certain choices, chance, random and not so random things can affect which reality of this fifth dimensional thing you tap into. So it gets a little bit trippy and interesting there, but my point with bringing up the fifth dimension is that at one level in spiritual, again, if you go on the more of the Eastern traditions, the spiritual traditions, they'll say that everything is one, it all exists all at once. There is no time. It's all just happening.
Right, right.
Well, in the physics supports that in saying that in the fifth dimension, all these possibilities simultaneously coexist. So every possible every path you could take, every reality that you could experience, all exists. It's just which one are you tapped into.
Right. So somewhere out there, there's a me that probably drinks less milk or something.
Yeah, and there may be a you that is, that it's a probability or a possibility of that you. It's not that you is just out there existing, but if you were in sync with that particular, um, in resonance with that particular reality, then it would manifest. So this gets into some speculative and kind of, like I said, sounds a bit woo woo, but in my
I love woo
experience,
woo.
yeah, and me too. I mean,
I mean,
who
it makes
doesn't love
sense to me.
you know I mean, I think what, like, my experience has been truly through experience and working with people, many thousands of people, including some very, some of the highest performers in their industries and areas in the world, entrepreneurs, athletes, celebrities, and artists, in their fields, areas. And so I've been exposed and worked with these people, and over and over and over and over again, it all comes down to someone's their resonant state, their energy state, how connected they are, how congruent they are, how connected or plugged into this something bigger than themselves they are. And people don't, say, oh, the people that are really high performers, they know when they're in the zone and they're plugged in or they're not. And like, the name of the game is getting into that high energy state and getting into that super aware, connected place. It's not tweaking a bunch of little knobs and dials to try to, like, fix things or make it better out here. It's about, I got to be in the zone. I got to know my stuff. I got to be masterful at what I'm doing, but I have to be in that zone. And
Yeah,
that
right.
is about being, in a way, connected in resonance with a certain reality, because we all know it. There's a time when, Greg, I mean, it, when we're in the zone and things are flowing and opportunities are coming to us, and the person that we just thought of calls us up and they say, hey, here's this opportunity for you, and you're like, this is what it's about, everything's
Right.
amazing, and it's like, oh yes.
It's that
And
synchronicity.
there are other times when nothing works, and it's just like a struggle and effort, and people think, if I struggle and effort more, if I slog through this, it's gonna, I'm gonna transform this. But in all cases, really, actually, Stephen Kotler, who is a Bay Area guy that has I think he has a couple of books. One, it's on flow. It's about flow, getting into flow states. He talks about, being in the zone where you perform and feel your best, and he did all this research on flow states. And flow is being in the zone, and being in the zone, whether you're working at a computer or whether you're playing sports or whether you're, um, in an intimate relationship, whatever it is, being in a flow state changes the reality.
Mm.
And a flow state means you have to have energy freely flowing and moving. You have to have connection to the higher brain, and the heart has to be online. You have to be in sync with your body and mind. And
Yeah, and this is
that's
what
the name.
I'm assuming this is what you in your work call energy poor, energy neutral, or energy rich, right?
Yeah, energy poor, energy neutral, and energy rich were terms coined by Donnie Epstein. And he talked about energy poor is a state when things are breaking down. and this comes back again to physics, that entropy is when it means that things in the universe tend to go to a state of less order. Things left to the devices of the universe will tend to break down. Like the mountains, over time will break down into sand. If you drop a drop of ink into a glass of water, it's going to diffuse. It's not going to spontaneously have a glass full of ink and it's going to go into one little point, right?
Yeah.
Things tend to go into less order. They tend to diffuse. Energy diffuses. That's entropy. Things break down. But so an energy poor state means that in a way the entropy of the universe is winning, you're breaking down, you don't have enough energy to even sustain your body and your being and your life at the level it's at, and things are falling apart. So when someone's like cancering, or someone's in a relationship breakdown, or someone's in their business is falling apart, or whatever it is, they're in an energy poor state because they can't sustain what they had even built. When someone's energy neutral, it means they've got enough energy to manage their life, but there's no progress happening no matter how hard they work. And that's kind of what the culture is about, is keeping things neutral. Because if you think about the people that innovate and create, we in a way idolize them. We say, wow, that's so amazing, like these people that innovate and create, but we also, tear them down as well. But they're disruptors because they're energy rich. They're not staying neutral within the energy and the consciousness of the culture. They're saying, wait, there's more. We're going to push the boundaries. We're going to bring in some new information. And that energy richness, that evolving, expanding creative consciousness and energy disrupts the status quo of the culture. So energy richness is what we both look at as something we aspire to. Oh my gosh, these people are charismatic, they're innovative, they're open, they're alive, and we want to be like that. And at the same time, those people disrupt and they don't fit. But that's body-centered leadership was more about that. It's like, how do we in a way, if we need to, disrupt the life we've been living in order for us to live the life that's possible for us.
Right.
So as you get more energy rich, it will disrupt a life that's been built on fitting into the status quo for sure. But I feel like that's what's needed to create progress and evolve things in the culture. Because again, if the culture is more of a survival mechanism so that we all kind of stay the same and that we all fit, then transcending that, expanding beyond that is going to have a big impact. You think about Elon Musk or someone who's doing really just saying, hey, look, we're going to build a factory that has, that is going to be able to, if we had I think it was 10 of these gigafactories they're building out in the desert. I think it was 10 or 50 or some amount. It's not that many that could provide power for the entire planet. This is, this is someone who's thinking in a disruptive way that's not limited by the current existing culture. And I think that's my goal, is to help people break out of that sort of status quo where they just move a certain way, breathe a certain way, hold their body a certain way, go through their daily routine a certain way, and they don't tap into that energy rich, expanded consciousness that would allow a shift in the whole reality for themselves and for those around them. So that's the leadership part of it. It's like when you start tapping into that, you start making changes in the way that you're showing up, for sure.
Yeah, and the ripple effects are profound. Now, body-centered leadership, that's a year-long program. And a group of people, you take a group of people, and it's quarterly where you meet in really cool locations, right? And part of it is coaching. A part of it is the spinal entrainments too, correct? And and getting that energy flow going.
Yeah, what I found is, I've been in private practice working with hundreds and hundreds of people a week for many, many years. I was seeing a lot of people and taking care of a lot of people, but I wanted to do something that was more intimate and it was more targeted for people that were I would say they were already leaders and already living a very high level in their life, and they wanted to go to the next level. And so we wanted to put something together too, because we have people all over the world and all over the country that are in our programs. I wanted to put something together that they could meet. We could meet once a quarter, so that we could meet up in an awesome location at a beautiful villa somewhere, whether it's in Napa or in Mexico, or in Southern California in the desert, Palm Springs area, or we've gone back to the East Coast. We've gone all over the place. We've gone to India. We're going
Mm.
back to India this September again for another journey. I know that you knew about that trip.
Yeah.
I know
Oh
you
man,
wanted to
that's
go
great.
with us. We're going to be going back to India. So we do these immersions where we're working on someone's body and energy system, like physically on a table with multiple people. We'll work on like 4 or 5 people simultaneously on tables, and then do practices and meditations and have different people come in and teach elements of of other energy, work, or other practices and things that can enhance their ability to navigate the craziness and chaos of people's lives and negate the stress that they're under, and at the same time develop new strategies, new capabilities, so that they can live with here's what happens. It's like people, they create this amazing thing. So the people that are coming to these programs, they've worked really hard, they've created an amazing life, they've created an amazing business, or multiple businesses or whatever, but then they have to manage them, and it takes a lot of energy to just sustain it.
Right.
And
That's
so
the
that
key.
that that can drop you into the kind of more energy neutral, because now you got to go through the motions and you got to deal with keeping it all going. So what'll happen is that innovation and creative mode that people are in when they started all this stuff can fall away. And so these immersions help people re-tap into that, open things up, and then interrupt the patterns that have been going on that may have been less resourceful for them. So we'll do like 4 days of sessions on the table, interspersed with processes and practices, having amazing organic food from our private chef, who's just incredible. And we'll have different people come in and like I said, teach, and and then we'll just have fun as a group, and then in between these immersions, I'll do webinars and private coaching and assistance for people as we go through the year, to teach them how to do this stuff on their own, how to work with their body and interact with their body in ways that are beyond like just here's a physical exercise to do. It's how do you connect with yourself, take inventory of where you are, discover what you need in this moment, recognize that if, hey, what's going on? I'm feeling fatigued, or I'm feeling overwhelmed, or I'm feeling super agitated or irritated, or I'm in physical pain. Let's break down what is actually going on in energetically and in your consciousness and in your body, so that we can disassemble and then help you connect and actually in a way, self-assess, like, where am I and why is this going on? And we find, oh, I had this conversation with this person, and then right after that my neck started hurting, and I was taking Advil because I thought it was a physical thing that I strained my neck somehow, but then I realized, wow, this lower neck, the C5 area, tends to be associated with um, anger, or the feeling of preparation for confrontation, and the body's
Oh,
holding, we're
interesting.
locking down.
Wow.
So we have different somatic patterns that we can recognize. Hey, wow, when the atlas is involved, there is a tendency to have concern about the future, and anxiety, and loss of trust in the timing of things, like how's it all going to work, how am I going to get it all done? Or the pelvis can be distorted in a way, and that ties into someone's identity and who they're supposed to be and who they should be. And maybe the upper neck will lock in a certain way in the C2 area, which is associated with not feeling, not expressing the emotion that's being felt, and getting the analytical. There are all these different configurations and patterns that show up in the physical body that are tied into life, and that's the bridge we want to make with the program, so that people can actually start to actually make changes in their life by just connecting to their body.
Right, right. It sounds very transformational. So what happens for you when you're actually doing that work, when you're actually doing the spinal entrainments on others? Because I've been in a room where there have been, maybe 6 to 8 people in that room, and you're going around from person to person on a sort of massage table and working with individual people's spines and whatnot. And I could feel a definite resonance in that room. There's something going on in that room. So I'm curious what happens for you. Like your body must be vibrating sort of at an
Yeah.
interesting pace or vibration. So I'm curious what happens for you. What's that experience like?
Well, you know, when you're in a rock concert or you're in an amazing, venue where there's some performance and the energy is palpable and it's incredible and everyone's like tapped into it and everyone gets caught up in it, that's entrainment. Everyone's sort of syncing up to the same rhythm. Or the wave at a baseball stadium or something. Everyone's doing the wave and it's like, and obviously you see that we're all kind of one. We're all in a way one organism, and there are rhythms and energies that connect us, and they're biological. So women that live in the same home together will tend to go onto the same menstrual cycle. Just things. These are biological realities, and so when we're in this room working, there's a field created. There's an energy that's distributed and shared between individuals that you kind of draft off of, almost like bicyclists, when they draft off each other in a race. When energy starts moving, like someone's really free and open, they will start to, in a way, entrain or draw along others to be part of that free flow. So the person who's the most resourced, the most open, the most energized can shift an entire crowd, can shift an entire country. I mean, Martin Luther King or someone who has this energy and it just shows up, this connection and energy, and
Yes.
people will get lifted up by that. And so we use that principle of entrainment in this room when we're working with people. And so we might have, I might touch someone's spine or touch their neck in a certain area, and like opens up. They take a breath, they sigh, and the person next to them, 2 tables over, they sigh, and the person moves their neck over here on one table, and the other person 3 tables over moves their neck. And so we're using this energy of the room. And so I'm in it. And your question was, what is it like for me? Well, I'm in this flow, and I'm kind of like the conductor of an orchestra.
I like that. Wow.
And I initially I read an article about some research on professions and people who what professions live the longest, and orchestra conductors was at the top of the list. And I thought about what that meant, and I wrote a blog post about it years ago, and it was about that. To me, it was about the conductor of an orchestra they're connected into this like music through they know it through whatever in their consciousness, they feel it, they give out to this the players and the musicians, and those musicians give back to them the music, and then they're all giving that out to the crowd. So there's this like this giving and receiving thing that I think the orchestra conductors get to do. They get to give to the musicians, they get to receive back, and then they get to give it to this like crowd of people. And I think in a way that's kind of how I see when I'm working with people, I feel that like I'm able to see a pattern. I'm able to show someone's brain, body, nervous system how that is playing out, and then I get to see what happens when they open up, and then they give that back, that energy out to the world, and they influence those around them. So I think that for me is kind of the dance. And I feel physically tired when I'm working with people for hours and hours and hours and doing all these sessions. I might do, we'll say we have a group of 20 people and we do a couple sessions a day with them. That's like 40 sessions, but over the course of a day. And during those sessions, we're just giving everything we got to try to, just help bring about change. And I'm physically tired, but I'm filled up too. I'm opened up. I'm connected. I have to be in a really high state for me to hold that space. So hopefully that
nice.
Explains some of it.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about how you got into this line of work? I find it fascinating.
I was a fine art major, and my goal was to do. Well, I thought I was going to go into graphic design and then do fine art as a possibly a profession, but as certainly a hobby. And so I took a course in anatomy, and the course was the actual pre-med course in anatomy with cadavers and the whole 9 yards. So I was in with all the pre-med students, and I was acing the class, and the instructor was like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm a fine art major." And he said, why, like you have a an amazing knack at this. Have you thought about doing anything in the health field? And I said no. And and it just sort of got me thinking. And then long story short, I ended up going into chiropractic college without ever having been worked on by a chiropractor, and I had no
I love
experience of
that.
healing. I had no desire to be a healer or to, it was just, it was in a way, I thought I was going to just work with athletes and do kind of sports related stuff. I didn't realize there was a whole element of consciousness and energy and transformation and stuff with this work until I started learning about the philosophy of chiropractic. And it was interesting because back in the late 1800s, Daniel David Palmer, the man who developed chiropractic, he was this magnetic healer. He was a like a basically he recognized that everything is operating on vibration and what he called tone.
Right.
So the whole nervous system is vibrating at different frequencies, which is affecting our consciousness and affecting our connection between what he called the universal wisdom or intelligence and the innate wisdom or intelligence of the body. And he said, hey, look, there's this thing, this educated mind that comes in and which is conditioning and beliefs, etc. He said that screws up the connection between our universal or divine and our innate wisdom. And so the goal of chiropractic was to align those and remove any blockage or interference between the universal and the innate. And I was like, whoa, this is really like not what I expected at all. I thought this was just something where you just work on people's spines and on their physical bodies. And then I got introduced to Donnie Epstein through my wife, who had really taken the work of Daniel David Palmer, D.D. Palmer, and his son BJ, who were the founder and the developer of chiropractic, and he had really taken it to the next level and had developed a technique or approach, which was called network spinal analysis, that totally just advanced how fast you could get massive results. And so I got immersed in that and spent 20-something years um, working in this realm. And I've had my own, awakenings and expansion, and I've changed. I'm a totally different person many times over because I've been receiving the work, and then that branched me more recently into more exploration of the subtle energy bodies, the energy that's around the body, and starting to work with those dimensions. And so, I've been exposed to so many different people through working with Tony Robbins as well, because I've been a
Yeah, I was going to
practitioner
ask
for
you
him.
about that. Yeah, that must be a trip because his energy field is wow. I mean, it's big.
Yeah, for those people that know of Tony Robbins, I mean, some people have different perspectives or experiences of him. But I mean, he from the guy that was doing infomercials for decades, on personal development stuff, to the guy who does these, huge. Now he's doing, seminars for 10,000 plus people at once, filling up, arenas and stuff. And I would say that what I've gotten from him was, I mean, so much. I mean, I've gotten so much from the man, but I've got to travel with him and work with him backstage and fly around with him and really work with him intimately, and he's become a friend. Um, is someone that can hold that space. You show up and just like, it's just you. For him, he shows up on stage and he's holding this, captivating this, just like a singer like Celine Dion or Michael Jackson, or whatever, if it's classic rock or it's whatever your genre that you like. There are people that can hold that space, and it takes an amazing and tremendous amount of both physical fortitude and energy, but it takes your consciousness. You have to be able to hold that whole entire crowd. And so working with Tony has been really amazing, because I've never seen anybody that pushed themselves more in my life, to extract every little bit out of life and give as much as they can. I mean, it's insane, but he uses tools, a lot of different, he uses body work, his diet. He's got a personal trainer, Billy Beck, who's a good friend of mine, who's amazing, who's helped him. He used to train Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, for many years. Really, he finds the best people in the world to support him, and you can't output like that and live a life where you're pushing yourself so much without resetting and recharging, and in a way taking your nervous system down from these super high, output states. And so what I've been able to do with them is help work with them so that like we can take in 10, 15, 20 minutes and completely reset everything. So if he's been going, we can just drop it down. So it's like as like you've been meditating for, for an hour, even though you've been like charging forward, you can just reset the whole nervous system. And that's part of what the entrainment session does. It just immediately shifts the whole system and reduces all this tension and opens things up. And it's like you got it like hours of sleep with 10, 15, 20 minutes on the table. So it's been a huge part of his care. He's got always, whether it's me or a number of my colleagues, he's got someone with him doing this work or a version of this work everywhere he goes in the world.
That's great. That's great. It's so exciting to hear about. So now if people, a few more questions for you, but if folks want to, say they maybe this year aren't able to partake in something like body-centered leadership, because I know that's like a year-long thing that you sign up for and whatnot. What are some things you would recommend that folks maybe lean into more? Maybe would it be getting or finding a network spinal analysis practitioner in their area, somebody who's really doing some spinal entrainments or some Somoto respiratory, respiration type of work? That would be certainly a help, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think first of all, like for body standard leadership, like that's kind of a rotating thing. So when I have room, anytime in the year, people could come into that. So if people are interested in that, they can
Great.
they can find me by Googling me or looking at bodycenteredleadership.com. They can find anyway. You can find out about that and come in at different points. So you don't have to wait for like the next whole year to start. But for people that just are like, well, what can I do? Like, yeah, okay, this conceptually, this sounds pretty cool. You have like, body, mind, and consciousness, and you can optimize it, and you can get more efficient, and you get energy flow, you can get in a great vibe. How do I do it? How do I get in that zone and stay in it? We all know that there are like the things that help, eating well, getting enough sleep, drinking enough water, exercising, and, doing some type of support for your body, whether that be, like massage or chiropractic work or craniosacral therapy or acupuncture. There are a lot of different like approaches, which you can do all the right things and all those things, and those will certainly help tremendously. And if you were to just do those things I just named, your quality of life is going to be higher than 98% of the people on the planet. And then there's like another level of it, and that's where it's the integration of the body and the mind and emotions, and also tapping into a higher consciousness state. So some kind of spiritual practice, some kind of meditation, some type of connection to whatever you would describe as your source, your divine, your God, your spirit, universal wisdom. If you're atheist, the universe itself, whatever it is, like that. It's critical to plug into that energy, that kind of oneness energy, because that is in a way the higher source that will kind of trickle down through all of the levels. Network, the network spinal analysis method, you can find people by looking at probably find someone through, I think Wise World Seminars is probably the .com is probably the website. You can find that. People in your area, if there's somebody, people can contact me directly. I don't know if you're going to leave information, but people can contact me and ask me about it. I do a lot of private clients, so a big part of my business, I guess you could say, is flying around the country to work with individuals. So whether they're pro athletes or whether it's a celebrity or whether it's an entrepreneur or some kind of artist or whatever, but people hire me to come in and do like intensive work with them, and I might spend a day or two just working like multiple sessions and doing an immersion with them where we can make a massive shift. So people who don't even live in my area can actually have me come out or fly out here to California and work with me intensively, which we can get the results of what might take months and months, if they could even get those results, months and months and months of care with other practitioners. I might be able to accomplish that, in a day, really working intensively, because I've sort of mastered that now, because I've been doing that for years, working intensively, like one-on-one with people. So people, I would say, if I can leave people in a way with a tip of like, well, what could I do? All those things I mentioned, but there's a thing that another thing that kind of a saying or phrase, or I guess I don't know what it is when you have it's the word I'm looking for, mnemonic or something. No, it's not a mnemonic.
Credo,
It's this,
motto.
yeah, it's like it's this triple A. It's like it's where the
Yeah.
A stands for, it's the first letter in three words, and I'll go over it. I got this from Epstein. And it's triple A is like and almost like if you're gonna pull, to me it's like you've got your triple A card. If you break down on the side of the road, you call triple A. Uh, a little plug for triple A, I guess, but
Spiritual
triple
AAA.
A, yeah, spiritual triple A being that it's there are three things that really need to happen for you to shift any situation, and it's awareness. That's the first A. Acknowledgement, the second A, and acceptance, the third A. And the awareness, what we're talking about here is awareness of the physical body and its patterns without a story. So if you're having a headache, or if you're having a bellyache, or if you've got a physical injury, or if you're under high stress, you want to associate with where in your body do you feel this, and what do you feel. So someone's like, oh, it's a throbbing, an aching, a tightness, a pressure, whatever it is. You'll put your hand on that area. You acknowledge what you feel. You notice it. You take a breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. You connect to that part, and you acknowledge what you notice there. And it might be like, oh, it feels tight, it feels constricted. I feel, and it may be just a physical sensation, or it could be disconnection, where you're like, wow, I touched this part of my body and I don't feel any connection to it. It feels like voided out. It feels like nobody's home. And you just acknowledge what you feel. You might say, oh, right here I feel disconnected, or right here I feel it just hurts so much. I feel so, and you might notice what emotion is there. If someone's having a headache and they're just touching that place and they're like, I feel so, oh, I just feel like nothing works. It all feels so hard, and let yourself kind of be whiny. Let yourself have the experience, or acknowledge the experience you're having. Because people's pain persists, and most physical symptoms that I've worked with people can shift instantly when they stop trying to change it. It's a paradox. I call it the paradox of change.
I love that, though. It's true.
It's because when you're trying to change something, you're not with it. And the awareness is being with the experience without trying to change it. And the acknowledgement is saying, this is what I noticed when I stopped trying to change it. And then the acceptance is, this is what I'm actually feeling. So you're like, you maybe have a headache and you're overwhelmed. There's all this stuff going on. You feel chaotic. It's a tough day. Maybe it's a mom. The kids are like going crazy. She has shopping to do. All these things are going on. Or a dad who's got, like, he's trying to do some work over here and he's got a deadline to meet, and it's the kids, the family, or intimate partner needs focus over here, and they're scattered everywhere, and the head's aching, the neck's getting tight, they're freaking out, and they just touch that part of the head. You can put your hands there and just take a breath and stop, because most people want the headache to go away. Of course, we don't, but the headache is there because, or the pain is there because it's saying, hey, pay attention, because what you're doing and the way you're doing it right now needs a shift. So people don't typically treat symptoms as something to pay attention to. They treat them as something that's annoying and they want to get rid of. So the AAA brings you into this awareness, being with the experience without trying to change it for a moment, acknowledging what you feel there. Oh my God, I feel overwhelmed. And you can even make the sound like, ah,
Yeah.
Most people don't want to let themselves be whiny and they're like, I'm an achiever. I'm not going to like go to this place of overwhelm, and I'm going to just suck it up and make it happen. I'll take an Advil. And so all that energy doesn't get to be expressed, and it holds in the body, and people have a drink. I'll have a glass of wine. I'll do something to try to get rid of this. But that's not acknowledgement. That's just saying, like, I don't like this and I want it to go away.
Exactly.
They might acknowledge it. Well, I guess that could be acknowledgement. They can say, yeah, I feel overwhelmed. This hurts. I don't like it. I want it to go away. That's why you need a third part, which is acceptance. And you just say, right here, right now, I feel like nothing works. Right now, I feel helpless. Right now, this just hurts so bad. You stop trying to make it go away and just be with that for a second. And 90-some-odd% of the time, just through those 3 steps, it changes. And you're like, wait a minute. Oh, I know those 3 steps now. Awareness, acknowledgement, acceptance. I'll do that next time to make it go away. And it's like, nope. You have to do it to actually be with the experience so fully that it has to change, because that's the nature of awareness itself. Awareness in and of itself, without the desire to change the situation, will automatically cause it to change, It's one of the greatest paradoxes that I found in working with people. And I would say out of all the things that I probably do and teach with people, it's one of the foundational pieces for how you can help yourself out of any sort of physical ailment, situation, whatever, is by continuing to come back to here's where I am. Let me be aware of it without trying to change it. Let me acknowledge it, and then let me accept it. And that doesn't mean don't do anything different. It means you have to do that stuff first. So you're doing
In
what you're
order to
doing
move on. Yeah.
for the right reason.
Yeah, and that's when true transformation takes place or
Yeah.
begins to take place. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
so cool. So two last questions for you. And really, just thank you for your insights. And people can take a look on their screens after we're done to see where they can find out more information about you and body-centered leadership. But John, I always ask people this because we're all learning, growing, evolving. In a lot of ways, we're all mystics in our own ways. Transforming through this beautiful life. But what's the most interesting thing you've been learning about yourself lately?
What's the most interesting thing I've been learning about myself lately? Um, I feel like I'm at a place now in my life where it's all about living. I would say from the freedom of my soul is how I would describe it, and really this ownership of myself as a kind of it's like autonomy in a way, that I'm interdependent, but I'm really learning more and more about who I'm not. I think this is kind of think this is probably more of the journey or the evolution is about peeling away what we aren't, and realizing and remembering what we really are.
Yes.
And I think that's the biggest thing that's been happening. I just keep learning more and more about who I'm not, and I go, oh, I can just sort of like put that aside, and then it opens up to new possibilities, because so much has been. I mean, I learned so much about who I thought I was, and a lot of it was some of it was conscious, and a lot of it was unconscious. So the discovery has been more and more of, wow, you're not that either.
Yeah, yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And what's some of the best advice you've been given about life?
Um, well, I think Tony Robbins kind of has a simple saying, but it's live with passion, And I think that living with passion and putting as a way, as another teacher that I studied with that said it. It's like if you're holding anything in reserve that you're gonna like use someday, holding anything back, that that's that's never gonna allow you to really shine and really live your fullest potential. It's like, so the advice was, why only give 90% or 98% or whatever. Give 100+% to everything when you go into that endeavor, because um, what are we saving it for?
Yeah,
And what
right.
happens when we do that, and I've experienced, is that more is given to us, and we see that. I mean, it's like I love watching some of these shows. I don't watch a lot of TV, but I'm watching The Voice right now, and I
I love
love
The
these shows
Voice.
on. Yeah, I love these shows where you watch someone like their transformation as they step up and they are coming with their full passion, and they're leaving it all on the table. It's like just burying the soul. This is artistry, right? You just kind of like rip it open and lay it all out there. And I think that impresses me when I see that, when I feel that, and that's part of a big drive of what makes me work with people. I want to like pull that out, and because I want to pull that out of myself as well.
Nice.
I want to be living with passion, and not leaving anything behind, and giving it all I got in whatever I'm doing. So I'd say that the best advice for me has been, in a way, to go for it like that.
Nice. Nice. Well, John, as always, very insightful conversation. It's certainly not boring, and such juicy material for people to absorb and savor. So It's bodycenteredleadership.com. You can learn more about John Amaral that way and all the many things that he does in the world. And John, thank you so much for being with us today. You are a true agent of change, and it's great to experience some of you today.
Thank you so much, Greg. It's always a pleasure, and our paths continue to intertwine here. So it's going to be interesting to see where we meet up next here on the journey.
Yeah, I'm kind of digging the way the cosmic ribbon is flowing, but yeah, it's not boring, that's for sure.
It's definitely not important.
All right, John, you be well, and thanks, folks, for tuning in to another episode of Mystics in the Chat Room. See you soon.